with one.
Well, I'm going anyway. Let's talk about something important. Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
All right.
What did you do?
Oh,
What did you do?
what did
We're not live.
I do? Oh man, did I seriously freeze?
Oh, I guess we are live. No, we're live now. Oh, God
We
damn
are.
it.
We are live.
We did. Oh my goodness. So if you are still here, we owe you a tremendous apology because we literally did this stream. We did this stream already on time, but the live button the live button timed out. Like my internet dropped out right as I clicked go live. And so then it never actually went live. And so Neff and I literally did that entire stream and we're interacting with the chat and everything.
Hour and a half of my life that I will
It's
never
just
get
gone.
back.
Oh, goodness.
It's all good though. It was good practice.
It was good practice. It was. So effectively, as Mr. Baldwin opened us in, we are going to be talking about something important here today, which is the difference between economic growth and economic inflation.
Want to start with the definitions again? That was really good last time. I mean, I thought it was very successful. One of the problems that we did have last time is you kept doing this where your internet would hiccup and you'd freeze all over the screen. So you back with us? All right, there he is.
Oh, fantastic. I'm already glitching. That's great. That's a good sign. This is what you want. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I want. Direct market. Cool.
Good luck. Oh, come on. Am I frozen again?
No,
good
you're
luck.
not
You guys
frozen.
are head to head with Shelby Robertson's
Mo,
chairs.
so the point of this stream is not necessarily to watch it live. We're going to be talking about a bunch of nerd shit. The point is for us to drop a whole bunch of relevant information. Bow! And for you to EFAP it later and talk about how we're wrong, don't know what we're talking about, and we're making all sorts of wild conjectures about Comic-Con.
Yes,
it's mostly for people who want to argue with us but aren't around to argue in person. So they'll make videos responding to this video, and we'll make response videos. I don't know. Odin's got something planned.
Yeah, well, like I just want to put this out there because I've been frequency girls in the chat. We have more people in the chat than we had when we initially did this, which is not saying much considering we technically weren't live, I guess. But anyway, so the whole point of this stream is to explain the differences between economic growth versus economic inflation and how the current state of the industry reflects economic inflation as opposed to growth. And so the big thing that we were going to do is compare what exactly these two terms mean, and then take a look at some examples throughout the industry, specifically as it pertains to summer sales comparing between 2 years, which we'll get to here in a minute.
And then I wanted to talk about the prevailing trends in the comic book market as depicted on Comic-Con over the past 4 years going back to 2017, and how the pandemic affected comic books overall, as well as the situation with one of the things that is inflating the comic book market. But you start.
All right. So first things first, I suppose we should do that whole thing where we introduce ourselves. Neff, going ahead for the.
I'm Neff
today.
I'm Nefarious, also known as Aaron Neff. I am the founder and creator of Global Frequency Studios and the writer on Mavericks and soon to be other projects as well. And you are Mike Odin.
I am Mike Odin. I'm the creator and writer of Elysian Fields and Nine Realms Publishing. I am your host here today. Mo Biggs is letting us know that Shelby's empty chair is currently garnering more viewers. And you know what? It's well-deserved. I mean, it's a good-looking chair. Anyways.
Yours is a good-looking chair, too. I like the upholstery.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good times. It's really comfy. Been in my family for generations.
Yeah, This was your father's chair.
Yes, it is.
Like your father before him.
Potentially, anyway. But anyways, so to start this conversation off, we have to have an establishing terms. So what is economic growth versus economic inflation? So economic growth is an increase in the amount of goods and services produced per head of the population over a period of time. All right. So effectively, the supply and demand is healthy. There is a healthy demand, and so the supply is being increased because the demand is high as well. We're talking about economic inflation. It is a measure of the rate of rising prices of goods and services in an economy. And inflation can occur where prices rise due to increase in production costs, such as raw materials and wages. And a surge in demand for products and services can cause inflation as customers are willing to pay more for a product. So effectively, inflation is twofold. Like there's positive inflation and negative inflation. Effectively, positive inflation is well, we can jack up the prices on something because people are willing to pay more because of how popular it is. And then there's negative inflation, which is us rising prices, or in the case of the industry, rising the amount of titles that we have, so that it can appear that we are, so that we can try and recoup costs on things, and appear to be healthier than we actually are. And so that's what this really comes down to. And the big driving force behind all of this lies behind a graph that was posted about 2-3 weeks ago on social media by another creator. That was Comic-Con releasing this on Twitter to compare the summer comic sales between 1997 and 2021. And so the summer comic sales are indicative of the health of the market, because the summer is when you have big events, because comics historically have been targeted to school-age kids, and summer vacation is one of those times where kids get to go out with their families, do fun stuff. They're going to be going into the stores more frequently. So there's a larger chance for them to purchase books, purchase these comics. And so as you see in 2021, it's 24.2 million, I believe, titles that have been distributed to retailers. And it's a high trend across the board. So what we're going to be taking a look at is how it compares to 2016, because 2016 is actually the highest since 1997 that we've seen. So this is the comic book industry allegedly at its healthiest in recent times. So it's a very good comparison point. So we're going to be taking a look a lot at June, July, August of 2016 versus June, July, August of 2021 as a way to kind of support the hypothesis that 2016 represents an economic growth in the industry, whereas 2021 is economic inflation. And we've already done this once, so we're going at it a second time here. So we're going to see what we can do about that. Now,
want to paraphrase it a little bit, or do we want to try and
so the way that we had done this before is I had gone through and I effectively showcased the top 20 books in both years, and then we scrolled down to the top. Mo Biggs is saying that the sandwich is a more interesting topic. Well, I mean, fair enough, but you're here. We appreciate you being here.
There's a sandwich?
I guess. I don't know. NTM Comics is saying, hi, Ogden has decent lighting for his own streams, but not for when he appears on others. Predictable. I mean, got to prioritize. But
he has to sit in his Mr. Rogers chair to take on his teacherly tone and instruct us about supply side inflation and the dangers of comic book speculation in an industry built upon a house of cards.
Absolutely. Frequency Girl said she's making a sandwich. Ah, fair enough.
All right.
Frequency Girl says it's a roast beef. So good for you.
Nice.
Fantastic. Hail Frequency Girl. Hail the chat. And Comics Mate says, woo, Economicon. Man, I feel really bad. I hope he didn't stay up through the entire thing earlier. That I felt so bad. Like we got to the end and I was like, did we seriously do that? And it wasn't live the entire time.
There was a line from Dean in the chat that said, well, that was anticlimactic. And I was teasing you about it. I was like, I guess he didn't like all your math. But maybe he was in the chat the whole time. Yeah.
But anyways, so to start this off, before we start looking at these numbers, I did a Excel spreadsheet to kind of, it's not a big one, so don't be scared, people. But like it's effectively just to kind of give a basis for like numbers so that there's a good understanding of what these numbers mean. So by estimates, there are 2,500 United States retailers of comic book stores. Okay. So when we see these numbers of there are 400,000 units, which is the max that I put on here, because that is the highest number that we see in these charts, is I think 479,000. So when you see that, that means that, you will have, 160 books per store, per retailer in the United States, if all the retailers in the United States ordered the exact same amount. And so that's
assuming even distribution of those titles across all the stores in like a blanket amount.
And so the important numbers to look at here are 50,000 is where it effectively, anything below 50,000 is you aren't really getting, the title really isn't that profitable, because 50,000 is 20 books. So that gives you a pretty solid excess stock. But everything past that is kind of falling. And then at 20K, anything below 20,000, you aren't getting books really into the stores at all. And
there are measures that comic book companies, comic book publishers take to try and stem the bleeding and also to make up for potential loss. I'll get into that when I talk about my thing, kind of piggybacking off of yours. But just so you know, like the 20,000 demarcation, that is definitely a place you don't want to be if you're in mainstream. We say mainstream, right? Do we mean like industry comics? Like,
I would say industry, because like the majority of the books that we're looking at, and the majority of the titles recorded by Comic-Con are companies that have had distribution deals for a long time, and they have established
legacy media.
Yeah. Mo saying, to clarify, we were talking dozens and dozens of these grandkids. Ogden actually looks like a grandma right now, except his grandkids would all be cats. I have a son, right? Like he's crashed a few streams. Anyways,
crashed our stream when we had you on.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, this chart is kind of here just as a reference point to let people know, is like, once we go below 50,000, where the company's not really turning any profit on that book. Okay. And that's important, because what you're going to see is a drastic state of free fall across, in particular in 2021 sales, where you are reaching that 50K mark very quickly. So Mo Big saying, I'm not denying the existence of your son, Ogden. I am talking about your current fashion state. Fair enough, man. This is the spot where I have the best internet connection in the house currently, and our internet's just not really cooperating. So I'm doing the best that I can to make sure that I don't just drop out of the stream like I did when we thought we were doing a stream last time. Anyways, so moving on. As I said, the main proving point of this argument is the summer months compared of 2016 to 2021. So the first thing we're going to take a look at here is the summer month of June for 2016. And so what we're going to be seeing here is probably more higher numbers, especially in the top 10, because these are when summer events are beginning. right? So let's take a look at June of 2016. All right. All right. So here we have June of 2016 comic book sales. And so June of 2016, you can already see by these top 5 titles why June of 2016 had the numbers that it did. This is the beginning of DC Rebirth, which was a massive, massive thing for comic sales. DC had a very good year in 2016. So when we look at this, I want people to note something. I'm not going to go through all the numbers here or what have you, but I want you to notice that being a top 10 title means that you are earning more than 100,000 on your book. All right, being a top 10 title in 2016, it is important to. This is important to know for what we're trying to explain. Being in the top 10 is a guarantee that you're earning over 100,000, and this is something that you will see consistently in the 2016 charts as we move forward. But it will not necessarily be the case when we look at 2021. Okay. But so now we're going to scroll down a bit. All right, and we're going to find where it breaks 50. Okay. So here between 46 and 47, Mighty Thor versus Invincible Iron Man. This is where we see the 2016 books start to go below 50,000. And at 200, we have Bloodshot Reborn. So this is going to be another markation is the 200 slot is going to be a number that we're paying attention with an estimated units of 9,833. And then the other thing to pay attention to is 430. So there are 430 titles in June of 2016. And at the bottom of that list, you have 2,819 units for this book, which is by a small-time indie publisher. Okay. I don't want to say we're speeding through this so much as we are trying to make this as efficient as possible, as Neff and I have already did a stream for literally an hour and 45 minutes doing this. Mo Biggs is saying, poor Neff had to sit through this twice, a fitting punishment for some of his recent weeb streams.
Fair enough, Mo. Fair enough.
So then, we remember. So it's important to note that to go through things in 2016, being a top 10 title in June is and even as we look across, means you are making above 100,000. We are not breaking 50,000 until around 50 titles in, and you're still at the 200 spot. You're still making close to 10,000. You're still having close to 10,000 units being purchased, and then at the end we have 430 titles altogether, and they're still based off of this. You're still getting if distribution is even across all retailers, at least one book is being sent to every store in the United States. Okay, so now let's compare that to July of 2021. Mo Biggs is asking, hold on, let's bring this up. Ogden, could you do us all a favor and do either a Tug voice or a Zach voice while you go over these number? Nostalgia factor might help. I'm not good at that. We'll
get Matt Barr in here. He can do Richard C. Meyer pretty well.
I'm a bit more charismatic than the teacher from Ferris Bueller. Although
I don't know. He's got a
can't.
bigger following on Twitter than you do.
Anyways, so we're going to take a look now at July of 2021. And NTM saying, at least in school, I actually learned something. Look, man, I mean, this is actually like an interesting topic, and sadly, it's one that people are so touchy about that they're not willing to really listen to reason with it. And so that's that's kind of what we're going for here, is to kind of put this out as plainly as we can, so it's no longer much of a point of contention. So here we have, again, we're going to be looking at top 10. So top 10 here. By the end of the top 10, you're already down to 85,000. Okay.
Down from 282, right? Venom.
Yeah.
Venom.
And the top title is at 282K, which is a massive drop off. I think that when we did this initially,
Oh, did he robot out?
Neff did a calculate title to the 10th title.
Yeah, it was 30%.
Yeah.
If I recall. Yeah, and Venom 35 is like the last chapter in the Venom run. So it's, in and of itself, it's like a big issue. It's not a number one, it's a number the end.
Exactly. Which is like first and last issues of a run are going to sell the most. All right. And so, again, we're going to find where it breaks the 50K mark. And
you're right there, about
44 to 45. So a little bit before, but not by much. But we did have a very drastic fall into this, in hovering into this 50K category, where things kind of just hovered in the between 50 and 60,000 for a very hot minute, like a solid like 10 titles. And then we scroll down, we go to number 200. So 200 we're actually doing a little bit better in 2021 at 11,173. But what's bottom here is that there are 446 titles in the month of June that were ordered. And when you're getting to the bottom of these books, like you're still seeing Marvel and everything in there, but at very low numbers.
So this is 2021 numbers right here, right?
Yeah, this is 2021
so
numbers.
Just for comparison's sake, the very bottom of the barrel in 2016 was still 2,800.
Yeah,
now
the very bottom of the barrel here is 831.
The 200 mark, which is like the top 200 books, is kind of where you measure from there up to the top. In 2016 was at 9,800, so still just shy of 1,000. And here in 2021, where are we at with 200?
With 200, we were at 11,000. So it's it was slightly up, but then when you get down past that, there's so many titles at the bottom of the barrel, it's not even funny.
Right, and we can talk about why the upper half might be inflated. I have a theory.
Yes, well, and I think that theory comes,
especially if you look at what the number one title of the summer is.
Yes. And so let's move on to July of 2021. Mo Big said, for those that missed it last night, Bancroft said Goss on multiple occasions and got shit from it on the chat. Could you at least name some names with the creators for that heralded Bancroft hot Goss factor? To catch up with the chat, Ogden, is that chair even comfortable? Actually, it's very comfortable. That's why I chose this particular chair in this room. My fun fact: so my dad lived in Vietnam with with his dad when his dad was stationed over there for a few months, or I think maybe even a year or so. And this is one of the pieces of furniture that came back with them from Saigon, if I recall correctly, and it is super comfortable. It is an ugly as sin chair, but it is comfortable, and I've loved it like my entire life. I've loved sitting in this chair.
And now Odin falls asleep in that chair while reading his favorite old-time stories about King Arthur after having his afternoon lunch. He takes his nap. Yeah, grandma, exactly.
Ogden looks like her grandma, but reads comments like a 7-year-old reading out loud in class.
At least he can read them. I always flub through the comments.
Anyways, now we're looking at July 2016. So we're moving on to the second month. And again, we look at these top 10 and hell, like almost top 20. That's insane. So like almost top 20, at 17 is when the top books stop making 100,000.
You have to add it to the stream.
It's been a day, guys. I'm really sorry.
At least we're still live.
Yeah, no kidding, right? All right, so when we're looking at this, these numbers are really strong. In 2016, being a top 10 book was, obviously you're still over 100K, but like even almost down to the top 20, 100,000. You've got 100,000 for Detective Comics at 16, and then Batgirl and the Birds of Prey is 99,000. So then we're gonna scroll down and find where the drop off point to 50 under 50K is right here at 47 to 4, between 47 and 48. So again, late 40s,
last time.
50s. Yeah, like right where it was last time. So that's good. At 200, we are at 9,157 by with a tale from IDW. And then at the bottom, this was the one that really blew me away. There were only 363 titles that month, and the final closeout numbers of that title was 3,666. So that's a pretty strong month in my opinion. You have less titles than the previous months, and the top books are doing very well. So very indicative of growth. Then got to look at July of 2021. So here we have July of 2021. And so top 10. This is the one that really surprised me because this is the only month in 2021 that we looked at the first time that actually came close to having all the top 10 over 100,000. It made it to number 7 before it dropped off of 100K and went down. So top 10, you're still at mid to high 80,000 by the end of the top 10. It goes under 50,000 by 42, which is sooner than it did last time. Last time it went at 44. At 200, still 11,000 estimated units for the 200 spot. And now we're just going to go to the end. 450 titles were ordered. And the ones at the bottom here are Marvels. These might actually be, upon closer examination, these might actually be reorders. But Right above that, 448, 886. Man, a reorder of Superior Spider-Man, which is like 2 or 3 years old. So back issues that extend a long period of time. Yeah. So like the books at the bottom here are not selling well. There are a few reorders of older books, but these books down here are not doing
So the
well.
aggregate trend that we're seeing is that the upper portion of the books above 200, and certainly in the top 10, they remain high or mid to high six figures, because that's what's being inflated, is what you're saying. Everything below that, 45 mark is dramatically smaller than it was in 2016, when there was more growth going on in comic books. Now we have 3 digits, whereas in 2016 we had 4 digits, 2,800 in 2016, 800 in 2021. So that's really where we should be looking, is the middle to lower portion of the comic book market, rather than the tip of the iceberg that's poking up above the ocean line.
Yeah, correct. The best way to understand a market is looking at its top sales and its lowest sales, because they're indicative. If you have a lot of free fall in the top end, which, as you've seen, that first month there's a 30% drop in just the top 10.
Do you want to go on and do the last month, or do you want me to talk about aggregate annual data from Comic-Con?
So in order for you to have that, we got to hit the last month, because King Spawn #1 is in that last month.
Oh yeah, baby! I want to talk about that.
So August 2016. All right. #1 is Harley Quinn at 359,000. This was also just an outstanding, again, talking about how in July you got almost down to number 20 before it breaks 20K, before it breaks 100,000. You get down to 11, and then 12. It's at 99,000.
And where does it drop below 50?
It drops below 50.
Wow, much farther down.
Farther down.
62.
58. It drops down to 49,000, like 49.5. So if you round it up, it would still be in 50K. So really, let's put it at 59. Because it's 47,000. But
And what's the bottom of the barrel?
Bottom of the barrel at 200 is Civil War II, which is a reorder of issue 1 for 10,000 units about.
And it's still at 9,700, which was back in June of the year was 9,800. So we're seeing comparable sustainable levels. If you go to the very, very bottom of the barrel, what are we looking at?
If we go to the very, very bottom of the barrel, we have 413 at 2867.
Same as it was in the earlier part of the summer.
Yes.
So we're remaining consistent throughout the summer, at least in the beginning and the end, which are the strong points, like you said earlier. Like the beginning of the summer and the end of the summer is where the major sales come in. Like we're going to see King Spawn in 2021.
Absolutely. And so now we get to the big drum roll here. Because I know Neff is excited to go off on this. He did a really good job of breaking this down here last time. All right. So I'm going to do my quick spiel here, and then I'm going to let Neff just go off. So we're just going to go through. #1 is King Spawn at 479,908. Hold it, Neff. We'll get there. All right. Massive free fall. Now, granted, let's take King Spawn out of the equation.
It goes from 479 to 134.
Yeah, I know, but
that's 300,000 units.
Yes, I know, but you're also about to explain why that thing is that gross. So I feel like let's take this off the table because
You're right. Let's take it
there
down.
are extenuating circumstances with this specific one that you are about to
Go
go
back
into.
to let's pretend number 2 is the highest. We'd be looking at
Yeah,
134.
so let's look
right?
at 89 is you've got 134. So we'll go from number 2 down to number 11. You still got about a 30 like a what would you consider that like a 20% drop? Between 134 and
almost 40%. I'd say.
actually almost no, it's a 40% drop because that's almost 50 because it would be around 150, a little
150,
over for half, and
156.
that's 134. So yeah, like about a 45% drop off
comparatively back to 2016. You're looking at 134,000 versus 359,000 back at 2016 at the same time. So we're already seeing a dramatic shift in the numbers. Where does it break at? Where does it break at 50?
It breaks at 50. Oh man,
you already passed
way far ago.
You're way past it, yeah.
Oh man, at 30,
35,
at 34
versus
it breaks.
59 was the other one. So the 2016 top 50,000 was a much more extensive breadth of titles. You had 59 in 2016. You only have 34 in 2021. What's that 200?
Is the break for 200 at 10,090. So that's
right within the ballpark of what we've seen before. But what's the bottom of the barrel look like?
It's less than what they made in July and June at that point in 2016, and it's like 1,000 above what 2016 offered. And so at the bottom of the barrel of this
we got into triple digits.
460 titles, right? With Spawn Universe being Spawn Universe and TMNT being
reorders. Those have got to be reorders.
And Living Corpse Relics being the only one that came out like that month down there at 279. So like a bunch of these are just reorders of old stuff, which goes to show that the favor is going toward down here are people that are like, yeah, I kind of just want older books,
right. And if we compare that to what we saw earlier in the previous months in 2016, we were still at like 2,800 back in 2016. Now we're at 200. So we're at factors of 10 at this point.
Yeah. Like down here, that's 270, not even an eighth of the stores in the United States would get this book.
One copy of that book.
Yeah. So yeah, and that down there is the trade paper stuff, which we're not going to be looking at because it's not indicative to the current state of sales. Really, it's like,
I mean, I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to say, so we're looking at Comic-Con clearly, right? Obviously, and the numbers we've been looking at are aggregate reports, and they're done in 3 different ways. The 2 that we need to pay attention to are the industry-wide reports, which come from comic shops, bookstore channels, which include major market distribution like Barnes and Nobles, Borders. Is Borders still around? I don't remember. Amazon, online sales. The book market channel is everywhere that books are sold that aren't comic book shops. It also includes digital sales, and as of 2018, the other category, which includes crowdfunding. And then the monthly distribution data, which is what Odin was just looking at, combines pre-orders and final orders from distributors to comic shops only. So when you look at the annual aggregate data, you look at the total combined sales in comic books from distributors to everywhere. When you look at the monthly breakdowns, you're looking at it to comic shops. The problem with all of this, though, is that all print figures are calculated based on the full retail price of the book sold on the market. And what we know is that comic book retailers don't pay cover price. So when we talk about the financial stability of the comic book industry, Comic-Con is telling us, hey, King Spawn sold 479,000 units. Therefore, what we're seeing is, the cover price of $6, right? That's a huge amount of money for Image. It's not, though, because it's estimating the total retail cover price. So one of the reasons that you see huge numbers like this, and you've seen them since 2004, which is actually when retailer incentives start, is that comic book publishers will make what are called retail incentive covers, where you can only get this if you're a comic book store and you order a particular amount of books. Sometimes it's 10, 50, whatever. You get one of those covers per every X amount of books ordered. What's currently going on with King Spawn #1 is that there is a retail exclusive incentive cover signed and numbered by Todd McFarlane. And in order to get one of these, you have to order 250 issues of King Spawn #1. Now, lucky for you, that includes 5 of the unsigned Greg Capullo variant covers, which is a 1-50 variant cover. And there's also a total of 7 variant covers beyond that. So if you wanted to get all of the variant covers, you'd have to be buying larger bulk orders of King Spawn. And funny enough, if you do the math, we know there's just about 2,000 comic book stores in the United States, right? And if we're estimating that the majority of them are ordering the 250 package to get that one issue, it turns out to be almost 480,000 issues of the book, which we're at 479,908. So right there, you can see almost every store in the US ordered 250 issues to get that variant, that exclusive incentive variant, which is currently going, the cheapest on the market is $620. So what they're doing is they're ordering 250 books, getting the retailer variant, flipping it on eBay for a minimum of $620. I've seen it for almost $1,000, covering the expense of ordering those 250 books, cashing in on all the other variant covers that they get that they can sell for mid-range, and then, well, the book, if it sells, it sells. If not, they stick it in the back. Yeah. But the big problem, though, is that might work for King Spawn. It doesn't work for every book. Yet, retailers continue to buy variant cover incentives at this weird ratio. And the reason that they do this, the reason publishers like Image and Marvel and DC do this, is because this is direct market distribution. And that prohibits retailers from returning unsold merchandise for refunds. There are certain books you can sell back, but the majority of these books distributed through Diamond still can't be sold back to the publisher or even the distributor, in exchange for not being able to offload their excess or surplus product. They get favorable ordering deals, like reduced cover prices. That's why you see shit end up in the back issues section. Or in the case of King Spawn #1, 200 issues shoved in a dark corner somewhere. Because they can't get rid of those, but they can sell them for cheaper later on. In fact, I see issues of King Spawn #1, just the basic cover, going for 99 cents on eBay right now. It's like, $4 shipping, but that's still a loss on the book. What you're seeing, though, in this trend is the inflation of the numbers. The reason those upper books are upper is because they are one-shots, they are #1 issues, they are relaunches, or they are issues of books that have significant variant incentive covers associated with them. And you can track this. If we go back to look at 2017, 18, and 19, which is the research that I did, Odin did 2016 and 2021, you can see that the top 3 books for those years in 2018 was Action Comics 1000, and 2019 was Detective Comics 1000. Detective Comics 1000 had 77 variant covers.
Yeah.
80. 77 of them were unnecessary. 80 variant covers, and it brought in 574,000 orders. That's more than King Spawn, right? King Spawn's at 480,
479 something.
And Action Comics 1000 was 504, and Detectives Comics 1000 was 574. So you're seeing these huge inflated numbers for the #1 through 10 spot, mostly because they're #1s, relaunches, or they are overbought because there are incentive covers associated with the issue. when we talk about the health, natural health of the industry versus the inflation, we can clearly see that the top part of the iceberg is being inflated. And as Odin showed you, the bottom part below water, the bottom part of the books, like the lower 200s, are drastically out of proportion to what they were back in 2016 by a factor of 10. We were like 2,800 versus 280. So the bottom portion of comic books, what should be lifting up the top, is disintegrating. Meanwhile, the top still looks really good, even if it is down. Back in 2017, you saw a decrease in comic book revenue from 2016. Comic book revenue was down 6.5%. All right, it wasn't a very good year. Sales to comic shops were down 10%. They only made $522 million in retail shops. But once again, what you see on Comic-Con is the aggregate data of what distributors gave to comic shops. You don't see how much comic shops actually make. So that $522 million assumes the retail cover price of the units that were shipped to those comic shops, not what those comic shops were able to make selling those titles. And that's because Comic-Con does not account for markups, like when you sell King Spawn #1's variant for $600, or discounts, like when you order 250 issues for less than the individual cover price per issue. And as you and I both know, when you order in bulk, everything is always cheaper per unit. So one of the things that you start seeing in 2017 is the emergence of kids' graphic novels over comic books. Comic book stores fell 10% in gross revenue order, or gross units ordered. The largest channel, which is comic book stores, fell, and the smallest channel, newsstands, shrank to a level not seen since the dawn of comics, because DC pulled all of the remaining comic books off of newsstands in August of 2017. So an entire distribution place vanished. Like how we talk about selling on websites. Imagine websites just got Thanos snapped and you couldn't sell comic books there. You know what I mean? So then in 2018, you had revenue go up, which is great. But for some reason, sales to comic shops went down again. And that's because you saw comic book stores representing less than half the market for comics and graphic novels for the first time in 3 decades. That's because sales in the book channel, as I was saying earlier, there's 3 different places that they talk about: comic book stores, the book channel, and digital. Sales in the book channel, which includes chain bookstores, mass merchants, major online retailers, and for the first time in 2018, scholastic book fairs, were in double digits. And that was because kids' graphic novels were the biggest factor. Digital sales were up, but it wasn't that important. The big important thing is that these scholastic book fairs took root and started offering graphic novels. So what you're going to see in 2019 is sales of graphic novels, especially YA graphic novels, and sales in the book channels take off, which is exactly what happened. Revenue went up 11% to $1.21 billion in 2019. Suddenly, a shitload more revenue was piling in. But what was the sales to comic shops like? The revenue's up 11%. Shouldn't the revenue in comic shops be up? Shouldn't the ordering in comic book shops be up? No, it wasn't. It was up a measly 2%, and they cleared $520 million in orders. Once again, this is not sales out of comic shops, just what they ordered, which means that for the first time in the history of comic books, the history of the medium, sales through the book channel topped that of sales to comic book stores. Retailers in mass markets in the book channel ordered more books from comic book publishers than comic book stores did. And this is very telling. And it was all driven by these book fairs and the sales of graphic novels. Sales of periodicals, they rose very, very slightly. Then in 2020, we have, a terrible event in COVID. And what happens to Comic-Con in 2020 is that they don't report. They tell us what happened at the very beginning of the month, the first quarter or the first 3 months, and then they just stop reporting. They didn't track numbers. Instead, what they tried to do was they tried to track point of sale purchases through the Comic Hub system. And Comic Hub is kind of like what Comic-Con is for distributors selling to merchants. Comic Hub is what merchants sell to customers. Finally, information that we want to know, because we can then compare it against what Diamond is telling us from Comic-Con and see where it all shakes out. But you know what happened? Nothing got published because Comic Hub only works at 100 of the 2,000 stores because it's an opt-in process. They provide the POS software where you like do the scan and check out, that's a POS. And that charts or tracks what gets sold out of the stores. So you can compile that data and compare it against what is coming into the store. So you get a better picture of what's going on in retail outlets. Now, the fact that we don't have those numbers at all usually says enough. That means that we don't know what comic stores are going through and the health of the industry when it comes to those stores. We can already see that it's kind of failing. They're not doing well. And this is evidenced by a couple of different reports that have come out in the past year from comic store owners like Brian Hibbs, who's a guy who's 30 years in the comic book industry from San Francisco. And he came out and he actually published his end of year receipts for 2020 and 2021. And he was down like 34% on the year from his main store. But an important thing to note is that, this is mostly because of the pandemic, he said. He said the bottom line numbers are terrifying and we're essentially hanging on by our fingers because we're down by a staggering 32.59% in income. The thing that is most notable, though, is that 64% of the sales in that shop, even though they were down, were from graphic novels, not from comic books. And in the shop, because he owns a second one, where 59% of the sales were from comic books, floppies, 14% of those were from old comics, back issues. So when you compare those two numbers, when you subtract 14 from 59, you get 45%, once again showing that graphic novels are topping new comic books. So you can see clearly, even in stores, as well as in the book channel, graphic novels are emerging to the forefront of the comic book market. They're a better value. People like them more. I guess they like the format. Maybe floppies just don't do it anymore. There's a lot of different reasons that you might be seeing that. But as far as the health of an industry is concerned, I find it alarming that comic book stores' numbers are being propped up by this weird practice of selling multiple variant incentive covers to inflate the number of units shipped to stores. We still do not have a reliable method of reporting sales out of stores. And the big market now seems to be major retailers like Amazon. That doesn't, in my opinion, bode well for an industry. It might be limping along, but something's got to change. And in 2020, it was Jim Lee who said the thing that's hurting comic books most is that we're not focused on the books themselves. We're focused on the IPs, and that comic books are becoming a known loss because studios are riding the trend of the day, like the popular cultural, concern, like Robin and Superman and Iceman and Nubia and America Chavez or any of the other titles that come out that address the social issues and the political issues because comic books have always been political, all of that. Meanwhile, the real money for Marvel and DC, at least as far as legacy goes, is in the movies. And King Spawn is the first book that Image has sold in the 21st century that has gone to nearly 500,000 copies. That's 20 years worth of Image putting out books, and they've never come that close before, which means that if you're looking at Marvel and DC, who are putting out over 500,000 just in 2016 and 2017, these big titles like Detective 1000 and Action Comics 1000 inflated by variant issues, that's regular practice for them. Something isn't right.
Yeah, well, and you bring up the whole thing with the them effectively trying to use these topical instances to push things. It doesn't work. The big hot topic on the interweb right now is all about the reveal of John Kent's sexuality. The sales from that Superman run have been in decline since its first issue. The second issue, where effectively Clark gives his son permission to be a dictator, was a drop. The first issue, I think, was around 70,000. It was 68,000 units moved for the issue 1 back in July. Then in August, it dropped down to 40,000. And then in September, which I didn't show those numbers, but like I went and I looked at this. It was a drop down to 30 to like, I want to say like we're going to keep seeing these drops because people just don't care. People are tired of it.
So you mentioned these comic book titles falling off, and that's a very good thing, because I think I want to bring up this last point when it comes to inflating the numbers. So clearly the Superman issue where he comes out as bi, that was a big deal. People bought that. But
that issue hasn't come out. That issue it comes out next week. They announced that he was
My
bi,
bad.
and the direct result of that.
I'm sorry. The other guy that's bi.
Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Or
no,
Robin.
is it Green Lantern?
They did Tim Drake as bi over the summer, right, and the sales for that book didn't sell well. They dropped. And they were less than the previous issue of Batman Urban Legends.
So back in 2017, and this is back when variant covers, as you know, in 2017, it really tanked. We were down 10% in comic revenue, and stores were down, whatever I said that they were. They were down, sales to comic shops are down 10%, and revenue was down 6.5% in 2017. It went down significantly from that healthy summer that Odin was talking about. In 2017,
Mo brings up exactly one of the problems that happened to DC Comics. Remember a few years ago when DC was dominating the sales charts and usually took up 7 of the 8 top 10, 7 or 8 of the top 10, including almost always number 1 until the magic words Bendis is coming. Yeah, no, like that's 100% one of the big factors. I mean, Bendis took a run of Superman that was consistently earning over 80K and tanked it to 30 and below.
We can talk about the stuff that's nearly killed comics in the past, like New 52 and all different Marvel, Joe Quesada, things. There are things that have really done a number on comic books, but comic books are resilient because if shit's going wrong, fire the writer and hire a new one. Get rid of the head editor, hire a new one. We've seen this before where studios right themselves and start becoming prosperous again. Jim Shooter. We need a Jim Shooter these days. But What I was going to say is back in 2017, when things started really going downhill, Marvel decided to come out with these Jim Lee variant covers based off of the old X-Men trading cards. Do you remember the X-Men trading cards where you had Archangel and Cable and there was a series of them sealed up and you had to open them up? Anyway, what they did was actually really sneaky. You could order as many of these as you wanted if you ordered a certain percentage of a particular title that month that they were releasing it. And it turns out that the issues that they wanted you to purchase were the failing issues that were slowly falling behind all the other ones. Amazing Spider-Man number 30, right? It was paired up with Bishop. You could get a Bishop cover and order as many as you wanted, as long as you ordered at least 90% of what you had ordered previously, rather than not ordering that much because people aren't reading. Apparently, Amazing Spider-Man failed to find its niche because it had a $9.99 cover price, which is rough for people. And so comic shops are going to be like, I'm not going to order that. And they were like, but if you do, you get Bishop. You can order as many Bishops as you want. This is the real retailer incentives. Order a certain percentage of this so it doesn't look like it's falling off. You get it?
Yeah.
They did the same thing with Deadpool 28. They did it with Cable #3. They did it with Captain America Steve Rogers 15. That one had Gambit on it. Avengers #9 had Mystique. Like I said, Cable actually had Cable, which is weird. You're like, why would you pair Bishop with Spider-Man? It didn't mix. It didn't match. What they were doing is they were playing off of the nostalgia that we had for these cards, and suddenly seeing them again, oh yeah, I want that. And the retailers are going, oh, of course, like we can order as many of these as we want, sell them to all the people that we know. Yeah, let's gamble on taking 90% or even 120% in some cases of what we previously ordered. So it looks like the next issue isn't dropping off as much as it would normally. And that's another case of just inflating the numbers from Diamond through Comic-Con, because when you chart everything in Comic-Con, that's what you're left with. You're not left with the information of what comes out of comic book stores, only what goes to comic book stores. So all of that can be manipulated on the supply side inflation.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that really just ties into, again, the initial theme of this, and everything that we've presented, I think, really showcases that this whole lie that right now the industry is growing and that it's doing well, it's just not true. All of these numbers are inflated. There's so much free fall in sales in the top books. There's so much of all of this crap. And if the industry was actually growing the way that these people are trying to make it out as, the numbers would be that much higher because the bottom end would be way higher.
I'll disagree with you. I'll say the industry is growing, just not where we want. Because when we talk about it not doing well, we're talking about stores and we're talking about floppies. Graphic novels are killing it. Yes. I'm writing graphic novels, baby. And I'm going to distribution outside of comic shops because that comic shops ain't it. We can see that they're slowly dwindling. We lost 50 alone in 2017 and just more and more closures since then. Comic book stores are shutting down. They're being manipulated by publishers. Floppies aren't selling what they were. They're only hitting those numbers because of the variants that are being shoved down retailers' throats. Meanwhile, as we saw last year and the year before, the book channel, booksellers, and major distributors like Amazon are crushing it with graphic novels for the first time in the history of comic books. So no, it's totally growing, just not where people want it to.
And that's the whole thing, is that at the end of the day, how graphic novels are selling, and they're usually the American graphic novels that are selling are from runs that people liked years ago.
Yeah,
they're from trade paperbacks that were like, oh man, I remember this story when I used to like comics. But like, you aren't going to have that if the current content isn't getting the readers, and it's not.
I'll go back to Jim Lee. Jim Lee said, what will save comics isn't, the movies. He said that's what was killing comics. What will save comics are evergreen titles. And what he meant were titles like Watchmen and Swamp Thing and Sandman. Great comic book series that will always be bought and always be read. And that's exactly what you just said. We aren't going to get new trades out of this stuff. Jim Lee was saying we need new evergreen books that we can put together, new series that we can compile and sell trades of forever to keep the comic books industry healthy.
No, and I think that he has a good point with that, and I do think that is definitely a big part. I mean, hell, even in the crowdfunding scene, there's a reason why you don't see that many floppies around, or that if you do see a floppy, it's usually somebody's first book as like a proof of concept kind of deal. Like, that's what I did. Elysian Fields' 0 issue was a 25-page floppy.
When I looked at the industry of crowdfunding comics, because I wasn't trying to compete in the mainstream legacy media, whatever you want to call it, industry yet, I was looking at the things that were selling because they had the holding value and they were earning the money, and it was 58 plus or even 48 page plus books marked between $20 and $25. Like the standard 48 page to 50 page $25 graphic novel or, perfect bound book, that seems to be the bog standard. Anything that's not in line with less than 50 cents a page or even 30 cents a page, that doesn't sell as well. It's really stuff that feels like a volume that you can hold and have that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, that sells in crowdfunding. Of course, there are standouts, like the bigger names in crowdfunding right now. Those are big standouts. I mean, look at Berserker, right?
Yeah. Oh, Berserker. That's a whole other topic for another time. Now we're at this hour mark here. And I know that we did that. This is effectively for us, like
second time,
2.5 hours of us talking about this. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin our closeout with some chill and chill. We're going to bring up your campaign Mavericks because it's a brilliant campaign. And, while we don't have a lot of people here, if somebody has somehow managed to not see your campaign and what have you, let's give them a chance to take a look, because it's a great book, and I'm certainly excited to get my hands on it.
I think it's worth it.
So let's hear it. Hit it, Neff. Right. Tell us what we got here.
Mavericks is a sci-fi military action thriller set in a near future approximation of a world not unlike our own, where 6 brave pilots go on a desperate mission behind enemy lines to rescue some refugees, and they encounter something they are not prepared to deal with, and their mission turns into a desperate fight for survival. It's been called by my editor Predator with Mecha, so I think that's pretty neat. We're in demand for a little while we go towards fulfillment. We are like packaging things up right now. The book is still waiting on proofs to come back from the printer. So once we get that, we can evaluate the colors. We'll be printing for full, and then we'll go to fulfillment after that. But I suggest while you can, you get in on the collector's box. It's the best value. It comes with a really cool dog tag that lets you make a pilot using your backer number on the pilot registry on the website that we're launching come December or something. And I think you're going to really enjoy it. We put a lot of work into it. I'm satisfied with it. And what about you? What are you up to?
Outstanding. I like, we've got a few things, but I just want to say once again, outstanding. Looks great.
Those are like the pilot profiles right there. You were just showing.
No, like it's a great looking campaign. I will be adding the links here into the description of the video here, cool. At the end. And if I think Mo, I think I gave you a wrench, man. If you have the link, please feel free to put it in the chat there as well. Because I finally figured out how to work that, and I was fairly certain that I got you a wrench.
Mo should always have a wrench.
Mo should always have a wrench. And so I'm fairly certain that I got him one, but I can't really see if he does via my end. But anyways, as far as stuff that we've got on our end, the first thing I'm going to talk about briefly is the Nine Realms Patreon. So, Neff and I have talked a lot about trying to expand outside of just crowdfunding and making our content available for more people. And one of the big ways that I've been trying to push that is through our Patreon. And so we have 6 levels of support that I think are just really, really great, really great values. Our lowest one is obviously $1 per month. And that gives you premier access to our Webtoon content, sneak peeks at upcoming projects and all of that stuff. At $5 a month, that makes you eligible to get a hold of a exclusive Patreon floppy comic book of each chapter of Errand of the Sable Knight, which is effectively a season's worth of content of Webtoon when it's completed. And so you guys will have those. They'll have special covers and everything exclusive to the Patreon guys. And then at $15 a month, you get everything that came before, plus you get the digital catalog of our books, and you get a sketch card drawn by me every month. You hit me up, let me know who you want me to draw, and then I draw them and I send it out to you. A really fun tier. And then at $20 a month, you get a hold of the Nine Realms full catalog of books. And eventually, as we gain more supporters, the plan is to have these, to bring in other artists to do Patreon exclusive covers. So at $50 a month, you get everything plus producer credits. So when you get a Nine Realms book, your name will appear on the cover page as a producer. And then at $100 a month, you get everything that came before, but you also get to pick out a piece of original art from Nine Realms content, from all of our books and everything like that, whether it's Elysian Fields, whether it's The Embrace, whether it's The Field, which is a title that we're doing, whether it's, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that we've got going on. And, even Aaron to the Sable Knight has a lot of great original. How come there's no access to your Landmark Shift title on Patreon? Because it's not my title. It's Connery's, and best of luck to him. Nefarious is saying, "Wow, you people are still here." Yeah, Neff. Gee, thanks. But anyways, as cool as this Patreon is, the last thing that I'm going to share is actually something that was announced yesterday by my friend Dave Brink. Dave, this is a project that I've been very excited for. And, when I was first coming out with stuff for The Embrace, Dave contacted me about potentially doing a crossover. And I didn't really think that the way that the Embrace story worked would fit very well into Genuine Comics atmosphere. And he let me know, I was like, oh, that's fine. I completely understand. If there's ever a character of mine that you do want to write for, just let me know. And so literally within the week, he released that beautiful Clayton Barton pinup of Perfect 10 with his new character, American Bliss. And I didn't know who that was yet. And so he showed me it, and I just went, her. He's like, what do you mean her? He's like, who is that character? I want to write that character. And so what
Odin
Dave
was thirsty.
Yes, was very. I'm a lonely man. No. So, this is the mailing list for the first issue of my American Bliss miniseries called American Bliss Father's Pride Part 1. We have a fantastic team on this book. It is some of his best work that he has ever done. And we got Pal Rodricks did an awesome variant for us that we got there. I mean, you get to see a little bit of Eric's interior work here in the campaign. Is absolutely stellar looking book, and I'm very proud of the story. And I'm really excited to be getting to have this chance to work with Dave on this project. And if you sign up for the campaign, I have a very good friend who is a fantastic cosplayer, and she's building up her costume and everything as we speak. And if you sign up for the mailing list, you get a free mini print of her cosplay, which is pretty outstanding. So if you haven't already signed up for American Bliss, or this is your first time seeing it, make sure you do so. This character really impressed a lot of people with Dave's anthology book that he did. So I hope that I live up to the expectation, because people are really happy with how she was in that comic. And this is a bit more in depth. I mean, that story was only a few pages. This is 25 pages that's the first part of a 5-part arc. So, your guys going to get a lot on who Kendra is as a character and everything like that. And I am really proud of the work that I've done here with Dave, and being allowed to help craft her character narrative, to help flesh out who Kendra is in this story, and having her go up against crazy bad guys and just be fun Silver Age, Bronze Age nonsense. It's been a blast. So, yeah. But anyways, I think that covers everything that we were looking to do. I think, Neff, thank you once again for coming on. This is the second time that we've been through this today, and we got it done in an hour and 15 this go around. So I really appreciate you coming out and chatting with me about this. This has been something that he and I have been back and forth on here for the past few months. Not months, the past few weeks, talking about this specific
almost
topic.
a month, very, very close.
Almost a month. Yeah, it's been crazy because there's been a lot of butting heads with other people online about this. So, I think we did I think everything that you guys got here was pretty solid content. The chat, thank you guys for coming out. Mo Biggs saying, I feel bad for Ogden's short-sightedness. With that level of income, he could afford men's clothing. Fair enough. But anyways, thanks for everyone for coming out. Thanks, Neff, again. I'll let them know where they can find you, and then I'll let them know, and then we'll close out the way we came in with some good old Mr. Baldwin.
We are the Global Freak. That's FREQ on Twitter. And you can reach us with contact@theglobalfrequency.org, which is our website. Those are the two best ways. I think we have a Facebook and an Instagram, but I don't manage those, so don't ask me. What about you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at ElysianFields_0. You can find me on Facebook at 9 Realms Publishing. Sign up for the Patreon. Sign up for American Blessed Father's Pride. And don't forget that we also have that 9 Realms catalog campaign to sign up for. One last thing before I go, I did send out an update here to the fans of the Embrace, but in case you haven't seen that, we were having some really big difficulties with the printer. And I had to make some tough decisions, and we're moving forward. We're hoping to have the books out to you soon. The ones that we had received, they were not up to the standard that you guys deserved. And so I'm not sending those out. But yeah, anyways, thank you all for coming. And we are gonna
hail the panel, hail the chat.
Yeah, hail the panel, hail the chat.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time, guys.
Because we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. A, B, C. A, always, B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. AIDA, attention, interest, decision, action. Attention, do I have your attention? Interest, are you interested? I know you are, because it's fuck or walk. You close or you hit the bricks. Decision, have you made your decision for Christ? And action. AIDA, get out there. You got the prospects coming in. You think they came in to get out of the rain? A guy don't walk on the lot lest he wants to buy. They're sitting out there waiting to give you their money. Are you going to take it?